Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled Planet X Objects Reaching Earth and Causing Tidal Events. Now, the evidence that very large objects, which I usually refer to as stellar cores, are found in the sun's corona is overwhelming. These objects are members of a huge system of objects which I have named the Planet X system. And these objects have invaded our solar system. And there is evidence that thousands of the smaller sized stellar cores have made their way to the sun's corona, as well as perhaps some 30 large to super large stellar cores. And for evidence, for lots more evidence that I can show here, you may look at article 333 entitled Huge Numbers of Planet X System Objects in Chronograph Images, and article 321 entitled Huge Planet X Star in the Inner Solar System. And here we see one of these objects. As you can see, it's making a connection with the sun. It's drawing material from the sun. That's why you see these root-like connections here. And this is the image from which this portion comes from. So there's the object over there. There does seem to be another one there. But this one focuses on this one that's making this connection. And here's one of the very large ones, the super large ones. This one was about 4 times larger than the sun. So you can see it is in the sun's outer corona. It's very close to the sun. You can even see the jets coming from the sun draping across the object. So it's very close to the sun. So a size comparison could be made. It's about 4 times larger than the sun. This is the core of what was once a star. So it must have been an extremely large star. And here we see another one of these objects. This is from a LASCO C2 image. As you can see, it's an object moving through the sun's outer corona, and it seems to have a tail, some trailing coronal plasma behind it, suggesting that it's drawing coronal plasma from the sun, and it seems to also be moving at high velocity. So this there are many photographs showing these objects in the sun's corona. They are most definitely here. Now, the Planet X system is a destructive system because the objects which make up the system are dead or energy depleted, and therefore absorb the energy available in any living systems they encounter. And this means that they turn them from living stars and planets with cores able to generate energy and thus gravitational influence to dead or energy depleted stars and planets with close to zero gravitational influence. And you may look at article 244 entitled The Planet X System, Destroyer of Star Systems for more details. But the objects that have entered the solar system seem to be only a very small portion of this system, as it is likely that it is 20,000 times larger than the solar system and occupying the whole local interstellar cloud in which the solar system finds itself inside of. In this way, the Planet X system would surround the solar system on all sides and make leaving the solar system impossible. And for more details, look at article 339 entitled Planet X and the Interstellar Medium, Can We Leave the Solar System? And here we see another one of these objects. This is one of the smaller ones, only about 4 times larger than the Earth. Of course, there are objects that are smaller than that may be small moon-sized. But this may be one of the ones that was once a star, but a smaller star. And it does have a striped appearance. As you can see, the stripes actually curve following the contours of a spherical object. That's clearly shown that this is a spherical object in the sun's corona. It does have a trail behind it. It's drawing material from the sun. Now, the fact that it's striped means that this is because it's an old star, and these old stars are in fact black dwarfs. And black dwarfs are very similar to brown dwarfs, which also have the striped appearance, except they don't emit any light at all without absorbing light from another star, like these objects are doing. That's why they are now able to emit some light. But they do so because of the material that they have gathered from the sun. And you may look at article 317 entitled Planet X System, Brown and Black Dwarfs with High Magnetic Field. Now, as I said, this object is absorbing material from the sun, but it does seem to be moving at high speed. And this indicates that these objects are both capable of moving at high speed and also remaining stationary with respect to a point on the sun. The small Planet X objects are the cores of planets and moons, which once orbited the objects which once were living stars. These small stellar cores may look rocky and thus much like our moon. And here I have Mercury. So they may look somewhat rocky and therefore a little like Mercury, except they're most likely, the ones that reach Earth are most likely smaller than Mercury, and perhaps from between 200 to 1,000 miles in radius. They will, however, absorb material from the Earth and often may seem to be enveloped in a diffuse cloud of gaseous material. The energy absorption process which occurs will also cause the absorbed material to become ionized. And for more details on that, you may look at Article 338 entitled The Planet X Effect, Heating and Ionization in Contact Regions. And because of that, it may emit light so that the object may seem to be enveloped in a colorful cloud, as this red object here. And this red object was caught by JFP in March of 2018 in a European webcam, and it seems to be surrounded in a diffuse cloud of gaseous material which is emitting red light. And this object remained in the same position for an extended period of time. And this shows that it is a stellar core, because only stellar cores are able to make these connections where they remain stationary with respect to a point on the sun. So we should expect them to be able to do the same thing when they reach the Earth. Basically, they make a gravitational connection with the Earth and remain stationary with respect to that point on the Earth for an extended period of time. Otherwise, any other object will seem to move in the sky because of the Earth's rotation. The only objects that do not do that, that remain stationary with respect to a point on the Earth, would be geosynchronous satellites. Now, it's not likely that these objects are in geosynchronous orbit. They will be at different altitudes. So it just shows that they are stellar cores or Planet X objects. And for more details on these objects, you may look at Article 243 entitled Earth hosting at least 3 Planet X system objects. There is evidence of at least 3 of these objects having come close to the Earth. Now, the stellar cores provoke the sun into having CMEs and are then ejected away from the sun with CME material. Small stellar cores, perhaps better described as planetary and moon cores, will be ejected as well. The smaller objects will most likely get further away from the sun and possibly reach the Earth. And here you see a cactus image where you see one of these stellar cores moving away from the sun with CME material. And this is an object that was ejected away from the sun with the CME material. But these objects actually cause these disruptions on the sun, these explosions, which cause the sun to eject CME material and eject the objects at the same time. And now there is evidence that in fact these objects are reaching Earth and causing gravitational disruptions on Earth. which lead to short-range tidal events. The first such reported event occurred in Uruguay on August 11, 2017, and you see an image of that here. And as you can see, the ocean receded, and that left boats sitting on the mud in this harbor. This was in Punta del Este, Uruguay. And more recently, there's been another event which has just occurred at the time of writing of this article on September 14, 2018, and this was on the North Carolina coast of the United States. And this was a high tide event, although an extreme low tide must have been created nearby, possibly 100 miles away. An abnormally high tide will always be accompanied by a low tide somewhere else, but it may not impact the coastline and so may go unnoticed. An attempt was made to cover up the event with Hurricane Florence, and you may look at Article 343 entitled Hurricane Florence, Cover Up for Tidal Force from Object in Outer Space. And this attempt to cover up these tidal events that can only be caused by an object coming towards the Earth from space also occurred on September 10, 2017. This is a beach emptied of water in Tampa Bay, Florida. And this was, well, there was a hurricane at the time, but the hurricane passed over long before the water returned to the beach. That's showing that this could not have been caused by the hurricane at all. And for more details, you may look at Article 227 entitled Stellar Cores Affecting Earth and Possible Connection to Volcanic Eruptions. And so this shows that they're desperately trying to cover up what is occurring due to these objects approaching the Earth. Now, the fact that these objects are causing tidal events, which can only be produced through a tidal force exerted by an object coming from space, means that these objects are able to exert a gravitational influence on the Earth. Earth's normal tides are produced by the moon's tidal influence on the Earth, and this is illustrated here. The moon has an attractive influence on the Earth's oceans, which causes them to bulge outwards towards the moon, and that causes Earth's tides. In the same way, these objects exert a gravitational attraction on the Earth's oceans and thus cause the ocean to pile up underneath them. But they must be coming much closer to the Earth than the moon is, and thus the bulge is much more intense, but at a much closer range. In other words, it's not a wide bulge, it's a tiny, very large bulge, only affecting a small section on the surface of the Earth. And these objects do exactly the same thing in the sun's corona. And these objects, although because they have a gravitational influence, it means they most likely have absorbed some energy from the sun, so that they are now able to have a gravitational influence. Now, the larger stellar cores have been exerting a tidal force on the sun from within the sun's inner coronal atmosphere, and it is therefore likely that these objects will give rise to vortexes, or as seen in the sun's atmosphere on the Earth when they closely approach the Earth, i.e. actually come into the Earth's atmosphere. Possibly not very low, possibly only the very top of the atmosphere, the upper atmosphere, but nevertheless closely approaching the surface of the Earth. And as you can see, this is a stellar core. This is one of the smaller ones, one possibly a newer arrival because it's not emitting light in this wavelength yet, so it has not absorbed a lot of coronal plasma yet. But as you can see, it makes this connection with the sun. This is a vortex, And this is how the object draws material from the sun. It's not drawing coronal plasma, it's drawing liquid material from deeper within the sun and from the chromosphere, which seems to be in the liquid phase. So it's drawing material from the chromosphere, and this illustrates how these objects are able to draw this material from the sun. But they can only do that if they come very close to the sun, and this occurs because of a tidal force again. In other words, the gravitational attraction the object is able to exert on the sun right below the object is much stronger than what it is a little further away from that. And these objects do not obey normal gravitational law. And for more details on that, you may look at article 210 entitled Stellar Gravity, Tidal, and G is not constant. The gravitational constant through which these objects interact is much, much lower than what it is when solar system objects interact, and this is due to their very low gravitational or photon energy. And that's photon energy inside the particles that these objects are made of. And this is because they are dead or energy depleted objects. The gravitational effect these objects seem to have is strongest on the densest materials because the gravitational interaction comes from attraction between protons and denser materials, such as water has more protons per unit volume than air. So the objects will exert a stronger force on the ocean than on air. In addition, rocks are more proton dense than water. So the stellar cores exert a stronger gravitational force on rocks than on water. This has the curious effect of causing rocks from the bottom of the ocean to often appear onshore after an event in which a stellar core closely approached a point on the surface of the Earth. This would be impossible under normal gravitational conditions, but these objects do not operate like solar system objects. They are much lower in energy, and thus the gravitational constant through which they interact with solar system matter is different from the one through which solar system matter interacts. Also, it seems that only material deep within their core retains the ability to attract matter, i.e. gravitationally interact. And you may look at article 184 entitled Stellar Core Evolution for more details. And these are rocks. As you can see, they look very rounded. They seem to have been eroded over a long period of time, and all that's very likely to come from the bottom of the ocean. In fact, they don't seem to be coming from anywhere else because there does not seem to be a river here, but we do see the ocean right over the edge here. So these stones or rocks most likely came from the ocean. But how do rocks that must have been at the bottom of the ocean suddenly end up on shore here, which seems to be at a much higher elevation than the beach down there in the ocean? And this means that there has to be a gravitational disruption whereby rocks are actually carried by water. In other words, they're made to float in water, and then as the tide comes in and brings in this water, then these are eventually deposited over here. So this means that there has to be a gravitational disruption, and this kind of gravitational disruption is illustrated here. So we see a stellar core which through its gravitational attraction causes the ocean to pile up under it, and this is what would cause the high tide event that impacted the North Carolina coast, and where they attempted to cover it up with the Hurricane Florence. And it causes such a gravitational disruption that not only does it cause the ocean to pile up underneath it, it causes a low tide event further away from the object and all around. And it will also cause rocks to be attracted towards the object and thus seem to float in the water. It may also cause air to rise and thus may cause extreme low pressures and thus storms underneath where the object is. And for more details on this, you may look at Article 188 entitled "What is causing the ocean to recede all over the world?" Now, as the sun weakens, it is likely that larger and larger stellar cores will approach Earth. This will increase the strength of the gravitational disruptions which accompany these objects. This will therefore result in extreme high tidal events which will flood the land. Very large earthquakes and volcanic eruptions will be likely to occur as well, and as the Earth continues to lose gravitational energy to this system of objects, it will continue to expand and thus fissure. In conclusion, small stellar cores are planetary and moon cores belonging to the Planet X system are reaching Earth. These objects are likely to be coming from the sun, and as the sun weakens, larger and larger of these objects will most likely reach Earth. These objects create gravitational disruptions on the Earth, leading to the to the ocean piling up underneath them, and thus creating both extreme high and low tidal events. Their effects seem to also be associated to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. And those are the references. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.